We are at Defcon 1. Launch sequence initiated.
Do you hear something? Oh!
Defcon 1. Counterlawfare is at Defcon 1. And for people who saw, I never heard about Defcon anything until I saw that movie War Games, but that means it's the most dire condition, ready for nuclear annihilation. And that is where Counterlawfare is at. Because we've got all, and that is where Counterlawfare is at. Because we've got all this unprecedented stuff coming out now. Adam Schiff is, this guy's getting ready to run me over like he's in New Jersey, maniac. But the point is, Counterlawfare has entered a new phase here. Something very important has been being worked on for the past more than a few days, a couple of weeks actually. But it's been filed. Hasn't hit the docket yet, but right after this, I'm going to do a special Counterlawfare report. People who are sponsoring the show are going to be able to see it on crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com, on odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth. Although a lot of people, there was like 500 people on Odyssey, and now there's about 2, because maybe 3. Sorry. Because you've got to use cryptocurrency now if you want to be on Odyssey, and if you were not aware of that, you've been getting the show for free for about 3 months. So thank you to the people who have sent one-time sponsorship payments on paypal.me/@crowdsourcethetruth. Sponsors on subscribestar.com and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth are also going to be able to watch the Counterlawfare report. And of course, people who subscribe to me on X, get on there at JG_CSTT. You're going to get the sponsor exclusive content as well. It's going to be an in-depth Counterlawfare report where I'm going to go over a new filing that I know I've said this before. And actually, sometimes I've been right. Remember, when I did that 59E motion for reconsideration with Boasberg over there, I believe I said it feels like one of the best things I've ever written, and then it succeeded. So I'm feeling like that with this one. I don't want to say too much about it because George's mentally ill, wife-swapping, paperclip Nazi brother, he's back in action. He really is been on it, and I think I know why. A lot of people have said, oh, you know, Jason, why are those guys after you? You know, some people think it's like an internet beef. You know, George would have you believe it's got something to do with a YouTube channel that he was involved with for 2.5 months, basically, before it was ever monetized. So he has really nothing to do with that. It's that those guys, I'm quite sure, work in some capacity for some aspect of the government. And I'm not saying that they, you know, cash checks from the U.S. government. I'm saying they're contractors, they are affiliates, associates, apparatchiks, if you will. But it seems quite clear that there are individuals who, like for instance, when this whole thing came about with Nina Jankowicz, George's brother's activity was very curious surrounding that whole thing. You know, in April of this year, his lawsuit was sort of winding down. I mean, it's idiotic, his lawsuit. It's going to fail, his appeal. But it was winding down, and he was like, oh, why don't we have a settlement? Which is completely not what he has ever said before. He doesn't even have any financial damages, so I'm not sure what it is that he would settle. He never made a settlement offer. Even when we got to the point where we were having a 26F conference, he didn't even stick to that. He was talking about nonsense because he's a maniac. So, I mean, again, their purpose is to harass me and to just sue me endlessly. George's purpose is to destroy my reputation. They're sort of a tag team of idiots. Look, we have a juggling class or something going on. Juggle mania. But I think a lot of people have noticed that it doesn't stand to reason that anybody at all would persist in that kind of activity for 8 years just to entertain themselves, or even if they were angry at me. It just doesn't make sense on any level. I mean, like I said, after 7 years, my first wife and I had reconciled and become friends. And I mean, I had a lot more beef with her than I did either of these two idiots. But you get what I mean. I think 8 years is a long time. Most people might not even necessarily stay at a job for 8 years. You know, you could have a whole entire career in the military or the police in 8 years and move on to something else. It's weird, you know. Now, on the flip side, you might stay at a job for 15 or 20 years, even if you don't like it, so long as it's paying the bills. And see, that's the key. There's something that's motivating these guys, and it's either payment or something they can't get away from. I don't know what it is. I can't prove this. These are my hypotheses arrived at from just looking at this information for so many years. You might look at the same evidence and come to a different conclusion. That's always the case. Lots of people have different opinions about different things. Even scientists and experts frequently disagree on conclusions that they derive from the evidence. But my point is, it seems like when I agitate certain people, namely Nina the Skank Jankowicz, and I can call her names like that because her stupid Lawfare protective order has been lifted, and making fun of her is protected by the First Amendment. I can tell you I think she's evil. I can tell you I think she's a piece of shit. She deserves to be in jail. I think she's violated the Constitution. I think she's a psychopath, narcissistic maniac who's frankly far more obsessed with me than I am with her. She's the one who's tracking everything I do on social media.
I'm just a dad to an autistic son who needs to believe there's enough light here for all of us. I'm being serious. I beseech a stranger shouldering me for not moving over fast enough.
There's a lot of stuff going on in New York City in any given moment. Chess games, little self-help group or whatever we have over there. But my point is, I was leaving these idiots alone in April and May, and I was just sort of tending to whatever lawsuits were there, fighting off George's stupid brother, Allegheny County medical examiner, dealing with that. Things like that. And then, you know, it's hard for me to know if George's brother was maybe running out of financing or something in April because, you know, I don't know. I guess you could always find something that correlates with something else. And what do they say? Causation, what is it? Correlation is not necessarily causation. That's true. You know, I was looking for a reason and I said, well, I don't know. You know, Robert Kennedy Jr. just became the head of HHS. Maybe that's the reason why George's brother is backing off and wanting to have a settlement. Or maybe it's that USAID got smashed and he's not getting paid by these stupid leftist organization NGOs anymore. I don't know. The other possibility is that it could have been a trick, that he was just pretending to kind of lay low to spring this stupid Nina scam on me in May, because that did happen, and maybe they had a big plan to try to shut me up and not be able to talk about Nina for the next 2 years by renewing Nina's unconstitutional, fraudulently obtained restraining order, and perhaps when that failed, he's been reinvigorated. I don't know. Any number of things could have caused it, but the fact is he's back. And he's back on like full tilt, you know, emailing me multiple times per day, emailing false allegations to law enforcement and all kinds of people, agitating every lawyer in every case that I'm involved in. It's insane. So he's about to have man, that's noisy. Wow. Now look, obviously, I am not the commander of some nuclear missile base where I hit a launch button and actual nuclear weapons fire. That was a cartoon, animation created with AI. Wasn't that amazing though? Even just a few years ago, that would have taken weeks to do, and it would have required the team of animators that was working for me at the time. And I'll tell you what, I didn't have animators who were specialized in doing people, the hair and everything. Didn't that look fantastic? I just don't think I would have been able to do that at all, and I just was able to put it together in a couple of hours. My point being, I'm not actually launching missiles. They got upset in court when I said that Nina was going to counter lawfare torpedo up her ass, and I think the judge got it, that I'm not actually a submarine commander, and there is no such thing as a counter lawfare torpedo. It's figurative, political rhetoric, but they're all basically about to get counter lawfare nuked. And I'm going to talk all about it in the Counter Lawfare report. People who are sponsoring the show on subscribestar.com and patreon.com/crowdsource the truth will be able to see that. I think you're going to love it. I'm going to go through the whole entire motion. I guess it'll be maybe on the docket tomorrow. When I left the apartment, it was not on the docket. They're a little slow over there at the Southern District of New York court. They will tell you that it can take 24 to 48 hours, but basically they just wait 47 and a half hours, then look at it and put the thing on there. But this is going to be an amazing brief. Now, George's brother is somewhere in a screwed up RV, wherever the hell he lives. And by the way, that's his whole entire lifestyle. You know, he has decided that he's going to be a lawfare hitman, essentially. Same as Christopher Boozy. Not the same. Boozy is a little different. I mean, you know, Boozy has an address, and he's basically hadn't paid the rent on that and got into a whole legal battle with his landlord back in 2018 or something. It went into bankruptcy. This woman doesn't want to be seen. Probably she's, you know, planning some terrorism later. But, you know, these guys basically dedicate themselves to being essentially the watchdogs, nice shoes on that dog, of losers like Nina Jankowicz and Ben Wittes. You see, because I was going through a lot of the original beef that brought about Goodman v. Boozy. Do people remember that case? That was where, you know, it started because I was questioning Ben Wittes all about this stuff related to Russiagate. That's why I'm talking about this now. You know, occasionally there are people, I know that this is either an isolated number of people or a specific number of social engineers, because in general, most people are actually quite interested in this. It's strange by any measure that somebody would be persistently suing me for, we're going on 9 years here. And like I said, it's not like we started Tesla together and I'm making, you know, $400 billion and somebody is suing me for $200 billion. I could see pursuing that for 9 years. There isn't even a monetary amount in dispute. It's just George's brother constantly trying to find a cause of action to sue for and making up stupid lawsuits so that he can always be in court with me, so that his harassment, which he should be arrested for, he can couch that in, you know, litigation emails. He sends all kinds of crazy things around. But the point is, it started because I was trying to ask Ben Wittes about Peter Smith, and he didn't want to talk about it. So we got into this whole thing on Twitter, and it's interesting. But anyway, he appeared to call on Chris Boozy, because I had never seen or heard of Chris Boozy before that. And he came out of nowhere and started insulting me. I understand what Chris Boozy was doing now. And watch out for this, by the way, if you get into a Twitter beef with people that you don't know. I don't know if it works anymore since Elon Musk took it over and changed around the rules a little bit. But remember at that time, and it might have just come about because I didn't know. I thought insulting people on Twitter was allowed, but it seems like what their game there was to get you into an insult fight with a lot of, unnamed kind of burner accounts. Oh my God, Harry Potter on Broadway. And then inevitably, they call you names, you call them names, and then you're going to say something that triggers some kind of policy violation, and then they complain about your account and get you kicked off. And that's what Boozy did. And I mean, in retrospect, it was quite obvious. I was a bit of a sucker to fall for it, and a lot of people would say, don't even get into conversations with losers like that, irrespective of Twitter policies. But it's interesting to observe in retrospect and see what they did and see how that works. But anyway, so he got me kicked off of Twitter, and I sort of forgot about it. I just, moved on. He destroyed my Facebook. That was bad. I lost a lot of pictures from friends, international friends, people who I basically have lost touch with because of that. He's really a malicious character, a sick, disturbed guy who also deserves to go to jail. Not necessarily specifically for what he did to me, but for what he does in a systematic way. He's a fraud. He is a serial fraudster, from what I can tell. That's my opinion. I don't know that that's been proven in court. But look, there's also a play coming out called Heathers, which, if you're my age, you'll remember that movie. Right? Heathers? Can you see that? Just get a better angle on the Heathers movie. So they destroyed my Twitter account, and I basically forgot about it. And then, see, this is what was interesting. A year later, that was December 19th, 2020. And I mean, again, I got so many people who are coming at me that there's a strong tendency to say, I'm going to just rise above this and forget about it, get on to more positive things. And we're very near where people got shot the other day. The cops are wearing body armor. I am not. It's illegal to have body armor in New York City. Isn't that crazy? You could get shot. 345 Park, over here by Carmine's, but you're not allowed to have body armor. So they destroyed my Twitter, and I said, I'm going to move on. And then 1 year later, Boozy comes back with the same defamatory crap. And I said to myself, you know what? That dude just threw something. What did he throw? Or maybe it's his friends doing that act over there. Anyway, I just decided in that moment that I had it with him, and I sued him for defamation. He spread that stupid rumor that George Webb started, which is totally untrue, where George said that I had raped a Sports Illustrated supermodel when she was underage. Now, mind you, I've never met this person. She's never accused anybody of rape, as far as I know, certainly not me. And George just completely made that nonsense up. I don't know the person. But Boozy, he received that information from George's brother and decided he wanted to spread it around. Obviously, not as a news story, not on the basis of an investigation into anything legitimate, just in the process of destroying my social media accounts, destroying my reputation, maliciously trying to harm me, I allege on behalf of Ben Wittes, because I never heard of the guy until I started talking to Ben Wittes about Peter Smith. And remember, I even had a big long phone call with Chris Boozy where he was urging me to leave Ben Wittes alone. So there really is no doubt that he was acting on behalf of, in the interest of, for the benefit of Ben Wittes. There's just no question. Now, why he was doing that, I don't know. I have to presume it's because Ben Wittes pays him. He's not like some Ben Wittes fan. I can't imagine that. So anyway, here's one of these cool 3D billboards. So I sued Chris Boozy And he ignored that lawsuit to the point of going into default. And at the time, I had learned enough about conducting lawsuits. Here, we got a concert. I don't know, not a very interesting concert to me. But I had learned enough about conducting lawsuits that I had, successfully applied for a clerk's, whatever it is you need to put the person in default. The clerk has to sign a notice of default or something like that. And that was like gonna happen the next day or something. And George's brother tweeted at Nina Jankowicz and Ben Wittes, letting them know. Why did he do that if these people aren't all connected? It doesn't make sense to me unless there is some connection with all these people. Like George's brother knows that Boozy works for Wittes and that Wittes doesn't want Boozy to lose the lawsuit to me. You would think, it seems to be. Again, these things haven't been proven. I could be wrong, but this is what I think. The weird part is the very next day, this big expensive law firm shows up, Ballard Spahr, defending Boozy. And they don't usually defend individual low net worth people like Chris Boozy. It's just such a beyond weird circumstance. Oh, we're really getting kind of bad signal here in Times Square. Maybe there's too much radio interference around. All right, let's walk out of Times Square a little bit. But yeah, anyway, all this stuff happened. Oh, here, look at the Transformers costume. It's around. All right, let's walk out of Times Square a little bit. But yeah, anyway, all this stuff happened. Oh, here, look at the Transformers costume. Get ice over here, you're going to see it. Pretty interesting Hulk costume. How's he gonna get in there? So Ballard Spahr comes and defends Boozy, and so then I amended the complaint, and that's when I brought in Ben Wittes and Nina and Adam Sharp and Adam Sharp's lawyer, and by the time we got to the amended complaint. Anyway, one of the elements of evidence that I presented in the lawsuit was that email that Ben Wittes sent to James Comey, and the judge just said, well, this is a conspiracy theory. It's got nothing to do with anything. But that's not true. And see, now that we're hearing that Adam Schiff gave the okay to, release classified information, I haven't really read all the details of that as far as what the classified information is. But what I'm getting at is there's just a really large and growing body of evidence that there was this kind of swarm of people around the Lawfare Institute, which Adam Schiff has spoken at the Lawfare Institute. He's sitting there with Ben Wittes. I put the video on Twitter. People can see it. It's hosted, Lawfare's YouTube channel. I mean, they're telling you their name is Lawfare. They are the Lawfare Institute. That is what they do. Friedman's Burgers. My favorite burger place, I wanted to go over there this afternoon, and I was like, I feel like it was really expensive the last time I went there. And I looked it up online. It's $13.50 for a burger. And then I went on the archive.org and went back to 2019, right before the pandemic. It was $8. So, I mean, there you go. We got like a 70% price increase. since the pandemic, that's crazy. My income hasn't increased 70%. And see, that's the other thing. They're persistently trying to destroy my ability to earn a living so that I'll stop doing this. That's why it's important for people to sponsor the show on crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com. It's only $5 a month. I haven't increased the price 70% since 2019. People can also sponsor on subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth, patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. I really recommend that you do that. You can also get onto X at JG_CSTT. Thank you to the people who have sponsored, and you'll be able to enjoy this in-depth counter-lawfare report where I'm going to go through this atomic device that has been dropped on the docket, figuratively speaking, that I think is going to shake the earth beneath these lawfare scumbags, each and every one of them. And I think it's going to be very difficult for them to defend. We'll see what happens. You know, of course, it's all up to the judge. And the judges are pretty damn crooked. Is that me ringing? So yeah, so the judge said, nah, this email from the defendant to the director of the FBI, that's nothing. But it's not nothing. And see, now that we've got the current FBI and the current administration and the current director of national intelligence saying, oh, wait a minute, these guys were all lying about Russia, it comes back to Ben Wittes and what the hell were they doing with Peter Smith? It's pretty clear in my mind what they were doing. And I was listening to this interview, Matt Taibbi with Chris Cuomo, two of the biggest dopes I could think of, especially Chris Cuomo. But I gotta tell you something, Chris Cuomo was on there trying to absolve himself. He's trying to reinvent himself right now as a podcaster. And it just seems clear to me that that is kind of a tactic that we are being subjected to. Now look at this. I guess we've got a big, huge thing coming in here. I remember when there was an oil pump in there at one point. Maybe that was an art installation.
Oh my God, no! We're literally on our way to the show right now. What are you doing?
Long lost friends being reunited. But Matt Taibbi was talking to Chris Cuomo about how stupid the two of them are. And Chris Cuomo was saying, Matt was corroborating this a little bit. They're saying that, talking about WikiLeaks, which is another thing that was really connected to this Peter Smith deal, because anything to do with Hillary Clinton's emails, the DNC email leaks, Seth Rich, all that seems like it was calculated to cover up this email problem that Hillary Clinton was having. And I believe that's what they were up to. George, remember, was covering Seth Rich quite a lot. That's his thing. He'll get into every nitty-gritty detail of Seth Rich. And I would say he's doing that because he wants you to focus on all the details of whatever it is that actually doesn't matter. And people will say, oh, how can you say that it doesn't matter? He was killed. Well, I don't think so. I haven't seen any evidence that he was actually killed. We had that super suspicious doctor give a press conference about it. I forget that doctor's name, not Dr. Acula, something else, but something like that, something weird. I mean, the point is something like, I forget the statistic, what was it, 85%, 95% of people who survive a gunshot and get to the hospital live because the hospital basically closes the hole and gives you a blood transfusion and then you immediately have surgery and you're all right. And if you're sufficiently uninjured that you can make it to the hospital without dying, you generally live, and there's been no autopsy, no death certificate. When I said that to Ty Clevenger, who is very suspicious himself, he said he's seen it and it's been blocked by court order, but he can't talk about it. And what I'm saying is any attorney at all with any sense of ethics or sense wouldn't say that. They'd say something about look, I'm the attorney for the family, I can't talk about any of this. they wouldn't say, I've seen this or that evidence and it's under seal and I'm not going to talk about it, because just even talking about the fact that you've seen it could violate the court order. So when I asked him, well, let's see the court order that put this evidence under seal so I can determine if you've just violated it, he blocked me. And then I went off and researched his whole case. There's no court order in there sealing any death certificate. I didn't see it. If you can find it, send it to me. I'm happy to be proven wrong, but what I'm saying is every person who has ever said anything about Seth Rich, except for John Mark Dugan, and other people who are just, commenting like, oh, George Webb said this, George Webb said that. I'm saying these people who are supposed to be like original first reporting, Ty Clevenger, George Webb, they're all lying. As far as I can tell, prove me wrong, Ty Clevenger, present this court order that puts the death certificate under seal. I haven't seen it. I have not seen it. And then Seth Rich's brother sued everybody under the sun, every lawfare moron under the sun got sued. Ed Batowski. It's all Stephen Biss bullshit. Ty Clevenger even worked with Stephen Biss. He's such an untrustworthy guy. So what I'm saying is Seth Rich and the whole concept that he had a thumb drive that he gave to WikiLeaks, remember it was George Webb who said that. George Webb originally said, before I even knew him, he did a video where he's like, oh, this is where Craig Murray met Seth Rich and got the thumb drive. Then I met Craig Murray and he said, no, he never received a thumb drive. He was never operational like that. There was no thumb drive. But it was John Mark Dugan who later told us that he received a thumb drive from Seth Rich, and then the next day the FBI raided his house and took his computers. And I think that was because Dugan had evidence on those computers from Detective Mark Riccari, who was investigating Epstein. Remember, Dugan was creating these encrypted anonymous whistleblower websites just like WikiLeaks. And they were like, hey, we don't like this. FBI being they, we don't like it that people can share evidence on these encrypted servers with smart people. So Dugan got run out of town. George Webb focused on, is it still a poor connection? I've got all the failover stuff working. It seems to be okay. I'm getting it over here. Jane Doe says, has USAID money been restored? I don't know. I don't know that he was ever paid by USAID. I mean, again, a lot of this is speculation and a hypothesis based on looking at evidence. If I knew the answers, I'd be better off. I'm trying to figure it out. But my point is, George is always there, making up some bullshit and getting people to focus on the wrong part of the story. And I think that's what Matt Taibbi and Chris Cuomo were doing. I think that's basically a tactic, right? I mean, they're not going to just give up on Operation Mockingbird and say, okay, we concede the news to independent journalists because the New York Times doesn't work anymore. We controlled the New York Times, and then after a certain number of years, people figured out that that's a corporate controlled piece of crap. And so they don't like it anymore. And everybody is turning to independent news. Yeah, you know what? I caught a little bit of Luke Radowski earlier, and he was saying this, because he's been at this for a long, long time. It's definitely true. And he was saying, we're finally at this point where corporate news has lost its advantage and that independent news is finally taking hold and having influence and whatever. But then I've noticed certain other stories that are interesting in the context of that concept, right? Like Milo is in some kind of beef with, what's going on here? Milo is in some kind of beef. Oh, look at this. I'm in the right place at the right time. Milo is in some kind of beef with Nick Fuentes. And Luke was talking about that. Okay, all right. I had no idea this was happening, but where is Joel Mottola? Where is he? Hey, is Sergeant Mottola around? Joel Mottola, is he around? No? Sorry?
What's the last name?
Mottola, Joel Mottola. You know him, right?
now.
Not here. I'm surprised. You sure he's not there? Now this looks like the guy who I showed the evidence of, I don't know if that's the same guy. Showed the evidence of, what was that dude's name? Victor Parra. Now wait a minute, that's not Joel Mottola right there? No, that's not him. Anyway, these guys were just talking about how, you know, independent news is more influential than ever before. And I thought it was interesting how Chris Cuomo is reinventing himself as this independent news guy, and he's calling Matt Taibbi Matty like they're old friends. Seemed weird. I've never heard anybody called Matt Taibbi Matty. Maybe he goes by that nickname, I don't know. But again, they were all busily talking about the Steele dossier, and Chris Cuomo was trying to redeem himself from when he told everybody it's illegal for you to look at WikiLeaks. And Matt Taibbi sort of helped him with that by saying that, you know, he had consulted with some attorney, because Matt was saying that journalists had forever thought that New York Times v. Sullivan protected everybody, where, you know, you can publish stolen stuff. And apparently a lawyer told Matt Taibbi, well, you know, it's not black letter law, is what Taibbi said. And apparently there's some obscure aspect of, I don't know, people can listen to that to hear what they were saying, but they were saying there is some very obscure aspect of espionage law where republishing material like that, you could potentially be held liable as a journalist. And so it felt to me like Chris Cuomo was trying to back into an excuse for something that just didn't make a lot of sense. But you know, Taibbi, he's dancing around the answer, but I don't think he really wants it, or perhaps he's too dumb to see it. But it seems like all of the emails that got to Russia or whoever they didn't want having them came from Hillary Clinton's leaky email server. And that all this other stuff was made up to distract from Hillary Clinton's email problem. What's the color of the day? I don't know. Maybe it's royal blue. Yeah, good point. Let's look around. That looks like a, yeah, look there. I see somebody wearing it. It was very hot today. Yeah, that's why I came out a little later. Also, I was preparing all this stuff for the Counterlawfare report. People are going to be able to watch that after this live stream. Sponsors will be able to see that on crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com and on subscribestar.com. and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. That might be a van that the police are getting ready to stuff people into. I don't know, let's see. I'm surprised that we don't have Joel Mottola here right now. People can also get that sponsor exclusive show if you follow me on X and subscribe at JG_CSTT. Police appear to be mobilizing. See, let me get to the other side of the street. This is a little bit constantly getting crowded by traffic. So, yeah, I don't know what people think about Trump federalizing the police in D.C. It seems like a potentially dangerous step. I mean, we definitely have a crime problem, but isn't that sort of like Maoish, you know? We start with protests, and then the protests turn violent, and then the military becomes the police and kills everybody? Isn't that sort of the Mao way of doing it? Woo! Fucking stupid bitch. Let's see, what is going on with the cops here? They're getting ready for the Intifada. Oh, the march is starting. Maybe I'll just stay right here and let it wash past me. So the cops are directing. Well, I've always suspected that, right? Why are the cops leading the protest? Oh yeah, see, we got a lot of blue hats there. That's guy's friends with Saeed El-Attab. Get the fattest cop to block the camera. Now this guy says Allied Universal. That's a private security company. Yeah, you definitely should not be allowed to be at one of these things in a mask. There's a lot of royal blue. Might well be the color of the day. I don't know. Seemed very organized by the cops to me. Very organized. And now people who aren't the cops are directing traffic. I don't understand how this works. Where'd that siren come from? Oh, that's a cop in there. So, okay. See, there's some kind of very covert thing going on with the cops in these protests. I don't know. Very, very interesting. So they'll go do whatever. Charging the New York Times with genocide. So I'm just saying, you know, it's all these deceptive narratives being pushed in all kinds of ways. We've seen these police protests with actors, characters, people that we recognize for years, whether it's Ezra Frisch or Ronan Levi or Oren Levi or Unisco Wahala Kano, the infamous crackhead Barney. They have a ton of people. And I'm just saying, George is one of them, Boozy is one of them, but they don't all do the same thing, you know? They're not necessarily street level performers, you know? Boozy, he's specialized in taking people off of social media. And he seems to be pretty focused on helping Benjamin Wittes, or at least in my case he was. George's brother is a specialist in conducting low-grade lawfare. Obviously they need Norm Eisen and Mark Elias and big experienced lawyers to deal with Donald Trump and other sophisticated adversaries who have resources and money. That's crazy. You know, but for me, they got losers like Stephen Biss and George's brother. And actually, you know, they moved up the chain. They got Ballard Spahr involved. They got Finnegan, Henderson, Faribault, and whoever else they have there. There are many law firms that are after me. Nina's stupid law firm is Ollie Lockwood. You know, they have all these boutique law firms coming out of the woodwork now. It's pretty heavy-duty lawfare that they're doing against me. What did people think about that protest? Yeah, it's interesting. Train derailment in Texas, oh no. Yeah, those loonies, I mean, look, a lot of them, it's just like January 6th, right? A lot of them are people who are legitimately upset about a legitimate thing. They get corralled by whoever it is in the police that controls this sort of thing, and they're controlling them around. And it's the same thing with news and information when you look at George and his brother and all these people that I'm talking about. And the reason they don't like me is because I'm not on their program. So they need to stop me. They need to take me off of social media. They need to take away my ability to earn money. That's why I ask people constantly to sponsor the show. Even if you're just watching these free YouTube and Twitter X walking around New York City videos, I can't keep doing this without your support and sponsorship. So get over to subscribestar.com or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. Those guys are stealing something out of there. They're wrenching off the bottom of that mailbox and doing something weird. But get over there to subscribestar.com or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth or crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com, or if you're into cryptocurrency, you can still go to odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth. If you like Elon Musk, you can get onto x.com@JG_CSTT and subscribe. It's only $5 a month. I mean, I've actually tried to lower the price of the show. They took out Odyssey. George's brother played a role in that, by the way. You know, he was suing them at one point. For all I know, he's the one who, told banks, he sends a million emails around about me. Why wouldn't he do it about them? He's such a miserable scumbag. Really deserves the harshest penalties available. But we'll see. I'm going to go into all kinds of details about what this next round of counter-lawfare will entail. And I think non-attorneys and attorneys alike will find it quite interesting. I'm really at a point where many, many people have said that I've become quite a formidable pro se litigator. I think I mentioned I got a call the other day from a lawyer. She was asking me if I was a law professor, and I said, no, why? And they said, well, we saw this amicus brief that you filed, and we've got a constitutional case, and we're looking for amici, but if you're not a law professor, we can't use you. And I said, all right. But I thought that was interesting. Additionally, the judge in Allegheny Medical Examiner, Goodman versus Allegheny Medical Examiner, he said, you're not the average pro se, Mr. Goodman, and I was quite complimented by that. But look, I mean, I'm not a lawyer and still don't know a lot of things. Could be wrong about this whole entire theory. We'll have to see when it gets to court. We have a dog in a thing here. See a little dog being wheeled in that thing. Little white poodle. It's cooling down now, which is nice. New York City around sunset. Here's Madison Square Garden for people who remember that show where, see, Jack Posobiec, he's another one of these people I'm talking about. And he came at me as a vector from George Webb. So all of these people interact in some way, you know, they're part of a system of some kind. I think most people with brains agree and can easily see that Jack Posobiec was acting very strangely that day. You know, where he was trying to control the conversation. He was making up things. He said I was lying at him, lying on him. I didn't lie. I said to him, Jack, how can you avoid all this evidence of the second shooter? And I was talking about Maxwell Urich, and he doesn't say anything about that in his book. And he was just lying to the cops, saying I was harassing his wife. I was talking to him. Hadn't said anything to his wife. Didn't even realize his wife was there until he brought it up. So he's just a fundamentally dishonest guy. You know, I mean, I'm sorry if people get upset to hear me say that, but it's a fact. That's a fact, Jack. But remember, I first met him, well, I met him at the Deplorable, which I went to, but then he invited me to this screening of that movie, Get Me Roger Stone, and I was hanging out with George at the time, and Jack specifically said, no, George can't come. And in retrospect, that's really weird too. Why would he not say, sure, you're starting a YouTube show with George, bring him along. You know, he was adamant that George couldn't come, but yet George wanted to drive me to the place and wait at a bar where he met that guy who gave him a BlackBerry that George told me, oh, you better pixelate out the label on the BlackBerry when we make this drunken video, and then spent the next 5 years telling me to depixelate it, which is not something that you can do. And also, he had already put out the clear image of it, so what would be the point? I saw it, I confirmed. Yes, that's an unaltered image, but still, he wanted me to put it out. Why? I don't know why, but the reason I didn't do it is because it just smelled like a trick. Because everything those guys do is a trick. Just like I've said, it seems like the whole game with Peter Smith was to trick Charles into receiving these 33,000 emails so they could send the FBI at him, which they ultimately did. They didn't trick him into taking the emails, they sent the FBI at him. But if they had succeeded in getting the emails to Charles, when the FBI got him, the FBI would have said, oh, see, it was all about like what Matt Taibbi and Chris Cuomo were talking about. The emails were stolen. See, this is what I'm saying. This is what they were trying to do to Charles. And it's all the same people talking about all the same stuff. Matt Taibbi, I don't think, is innocent in this. I think he's part of it. He's the guy who's there to control the narrative. So they're talking about the same ideas because these are all ideas they wanted to use against Charles. They wanted this obscure aspect of the espionage law to touch Charles, that these emails were stolen by somebody else, but because you have them, it's espionage. What is this? That's a weird dude. It's all a very interconnected matrix, as far as I can tell. And again, these are my opinions based on looking at all this evidence. You might come to a different conclusion looking at the same evidence. Now, granted, I've been looking at this evidence for like 8 years, and there's elements of it that I've had longer than anybody else. That letter, that demonstrative pedagogical summary to be developed. Now, granted, I've been looking at this evidence for like 8 years, and there's elements of it that I've had longer than anybody else. How do you want exact shit? I want you to know, because September for them didn't want on with the defense of, oh, the 60-day rule from the DOJ. You can't investigate it. So they were pushing that timing. I'm telling you, this is Lawfare. The Lawfare Institute. That's why Adam Schiff is hanging out with Ben Wittes. This is all coordinated crap. Norm Eisen, Ben Wittes, Andrew Weissman, Felix Sater. The other thing Matt Taibbi was talking to Chris Cuomo about was, the timing, the dates. So just like George Webb talking about Seth Rich, Matt Taibbi wants to be the expert in the minutia of the Hillary Clinton, what was going on with the DNC hack and how the FBI never investigated the server and that CrowdStrike is an FBI cutout, Sean Henry, Dmitry Alperovich. He wants to get into the details and really wind you up with all the shit that doesn't matter. But he does not want to talk about this email from Benjamin Wittes to James Comey that then gets sent to McCabe, Rybicki, and Jim Baker. Remember Jim Baker, the attorney who then goes and works for Twitter after he gets fired from the FBI because of some sort of a problem in US versus Sussman? Guess what lawyer was in that case? Oh yeah, Chris Boozy's lawyer, Maxwell Mishkin, the guy who magically showed up when I was about to get Boozy in default, which George's brother contacted Ben Wittes to tell him, hey, watch out, almost as if he knew something about this broader matrix of people who are all connected. Isn't it weird? It seems weird to me. Very coincidental, you might say. Conspiracy theory if you're the judge, but I think it's an actual conspiracy, to tell you the truth. Charles says I should be the advisor to the mayor. Thank you, Charles, I appreciate that, but the problem is we got idiots for mayors, and I don't think they would take the advice. So Tony S. is asking if people still listen to this old storytelling. What are you doing here, you fucking idiot? You're listening to it. It's not old, it's current. What I'm telling you is, you've got Tulsi Gabbard releasing information for the first time that says on December 8th, Barack Obama says, I don't like this intelligence assessment that says Russia did nothing, go make me one that says Russia hacked. The next day, Adam Sharp leaves Twitter. December 28th, he issues a press release saying that he's left Twitter, and it's the same exact day that Benjamin Wittes emails James Comey. So I don't know, Tony, are you part of this FBI mess, or are you just stupid as a rock? Or are you just here to make dumb comments and piss me off? Because fuck you is my response. There would be 1 million people listening to this old storytelling, as you call it, if it wasn't for motherfuckers like George's brother and the people who have spent like $2, $3, $4 million trying to destroy me. That's documented, idiot. Tony S., you are such a bitch. You should say that shit to me in real life. Asshole. Muted for being a dickhead. Anyway, don't be like Tony, he's a stupid idiot. Sponsor the show. Okay? Because they obviously don't want this to be discussed. They want people to listen to Matt Taibbi with 1 million or 2 million viewers talking about, I don't know, Christopher Steele and CrowdStrike. And I'm not saying that stuff's not relevant or correct. I'm saying he's driving you away from the answer, like those police back there leading the procession. That's not a real protest. I mean, of course, the police are there to contain it, but they're leading it. They're controlling it. At what point does it become a police protest? And again, why do they let you protest right outside the New York Times? If you've got a right to protest, why is it a right to intimidate the people who work at the New York Times, clog up New York City streets? Why don't they say, okay, We got all these parks in New York City that you can protest and demonstrate. This notion that we can shut down a Tesla dealership, shut down a business, I don't understand how that's even allowed. I don't understand how that's considered First Amendment activity. I don't think it is. And just because those people show up there and want to do it and forcefully say, oh, it is, that doesn't mean it is. Just because you want it to be. That's the same attitude as these idiots who run up to me and say, you don't have my permission to record me. Well, it doesn't matter, because you're in public. Just because you don't like the New York Times and you say they're supporting genocide, I don't think that gives you the right to clog out the front door with a gang of masked people who looked to me like they were ready to do violence. You don't know if they would or wouldn't. Shouldn't be allowed to do that. Anyway, join me right after this for a sponsor exclusive. People on X can subscribe at JG_CSTT, or you can sponsor on crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com. I'm going to go into all the details, Tony, and we'll see if people are going to listen to this storytelling. New evidence, new information, connecting of dots, putting together the answer. Really, fuck you, man, for saying that. It's one of the stupidest things anybody has said to me in a long time. And I don't care who you are, you don't know what you're talking about. Okay? People will be able to see on subscribestar.com and patreon.com. A lot of idiots like to make comments just to upset me, you know? Hey, do people still listen to this storytelling? You're listening, idiot. Go away if you don't like it. That's it. That's all. Thanks for watching, everybody. Tune in right after this. Here, we'll go out with this.
We are at Defcon 1. Launch sequence initiated.
Do you hear something?